You've had a lot of those, Ben.
Yeah, yes. So we, my vision has always been to try to build the best bicycle in the world, not meaning to sound egotistical, but it's like, if you're gonna do something, to me, if you're gonna do something, you go all the way. Or else don't bother, because there's plenty of other people who are trying to do it okay. And so that really led us into this very tangential path of bike fitting, and we found that trying to deliver perfect bicycles for people using systems that were in existence in the 70s and earlier just weren't delivering, and we were taking people's hard-earned money and delivering a bicycle and realizing probably could have been better. And so we got very involved in developing a bike fitting methodology, engaged a lot of people in the industry, including Paul, who really carried the baton for a chunk of time. But it was a collaborative effort to drive a better understanding of how to fit bicycles. And out of that, we essentially taught the industry how to fit bicycles, and eventually specialized, and Trek really led the way in changing their bike geometry so they actually fit real people instead of 20-year-old bike racers. Not that they're not real people, but there's just fewer of them. And so that was, that's been something that we weren't the only people involved. In fact, there are a lot of people who we never claimed to invent bike fitting, but we really kind of opened up this new channel. And the other thing that we did was started changing, really changing tube shaping, playing with tube shaping to change performance of bicycles. And that's been something that that we continue to evolve. But prior to the mid '80s, bicycles were, well, most of them were steel or aluminum with tubes that were all pretty conventional, straight looking. And again, I don't know that we were. I saw every time when you're younger, you think any new idea that you're the only person in the world, that I almost used a bad word. You're brilliant, and you think most of your ideas are brilliant, and the rest of the world's pretty lucky to be following. And so I was in one of these phases in the '80s, thinking I was pretty brilliant, and a friend of mine, who was a very good cousin of ours on the West Coast, who collected memorabilia, he took off of his shelf one day a British cycling magazine from 1890 something, and opened it up, and there, and at first I thought he had put this together as a spoof for me, but he opened up there a bicycle, steel bike that had variable tube shapes, and it was as though our brochure was written 100 years ago. So it's sometimes your brilliance exists in your mind only, but yeah, we've changed.
My wife tells me that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's fun. It's fun to be a part of a process, and the nice thing about this industry is that it, in general, is sort of collaborative because everybody loves bikes.
Yeah, I really want to give Ben a pat on the back for that, for the sizing thing, because he really did change the industry, and made us much more aware of it, and thinking about how to build a bike for a customer. And I think that was a huge asset to everybody in the industry and to the customers out there, to the people who ride bikes. So I'm serious. That was a great thing. I came into the bike building industry from the boat building industry. I worked on boats where I really pushed the limits. I worked on some of the fastest boats in the world, whether they were power boats or sailboats. And I also built some of the more exotic boats in the world where details were really, really cherished, in terms of, visual, not only performance, but for me, I've always been I've always wanted to push the limits, and I think we all want to do that here. I've really, when I started building bikes, I looked at, well, what's a bike do? We know it's very stiff to sit on. It's, basically a truss. It's like a bridge, it's very strong. And, but laterally, it's kind of wimpy. And, because it's not very much laterally. So what can we do to change that? And I feel like I did a lot of work in that area to change how a bike performs. And I think we see that now throughout the industry, in terms of bike's performance and all. So I'd like to think that was my contribution. Not like I'm the only person that's done that, but I think I feel like I did have something to do with that. But, and making riders happy. We get. I love the emails I get from my customers and all. So that's that type of thing.
Going back to your question, I think one of the reason we're here, right, is to live from our product and live from the enthusiasm we have towards the cycling industry. And to be able to do that, you gotta have something different over the big builders, because we don't have their volume, we don't have their manufacturing capabilities. We have to do something other than just building an okay bike at a good price. So the difference, I think, in innovation and stuff, and when we don't have the choice to innovate or find new solutions or see the thing differently, because if we don't, well, we're out of business. We wouldn't be speaking to you today because Trek would have bought us or something like that. So it's just normal. So different products, different people buying the stuff. So we really have to push the envelope a little further to get an argument, to get something for you to buy this bike. That would be my answer to the question.
Thank you.
So on innovation with Seven, I think there's been a number of things, but the one that to me is most interesting contemporarily is Boston. The small frame builders kind of is becoming an interesting part of the market. There's a lot of one-person shops all over the country doing some interesting things. Like they're the next generation of frame builders that will bring what we're doing here forward. And the two biggest areas in the country for that are Portland, Oregon, and the Boston area, or I would argue that pretty strongly. And I find the Boston area a lot more interesting, actually. And Seven, and earlier Merlin, particularly at Seven, for me personally, have been very active in supporting that growing industry, both with people that have worked at Seven that have gone on to build frames, and people that work at Seven that are building frames under their own brands. So that, to me, is that future is very interesting. Like where small builders are going for the next generation, and how they'll influence the industry. Seven, I feel, for me personally, given what I've been able to take from the industry, giving back through helping people build bikes on their own within our four walls, and then ultimately outside of the world, both locally and around the country. I would say that that's sort of an unusual innovation, but to me important, and the people side of the whole equation.
I have a question. Not to say that you would dislike something, but if you were to, let's say, remove a so-called innovation of the last 5 years from the bike options out there, whether pressed straight bottom brackets, tapered head tubes, internally cabled bikes, something that if you could just, tomorrow it didn't exist and you never had to make it again, what would it be?
Why do you need blades?
Because you're the most engaged, everybody else is
Somebody said only one? Is that, I can only choose one?
You can only choose one thing that you would never have to work with again.
I think it would be hard to choose one, but I'm going to go with bottom bracket systems. I think that's a little out of control, like how many variety there is, and that there still aren't very many what I would consider to be standards for those things. Currently, Seven, I think, has 6 different bottom brackets that we offer, or bottom bracket systems that we offer, and it's too many. and I think a little bit unnecessary. I mean, it makes sense to have a few different options, given the variety of bike styles there are, but I don't know how many there are out in the industry, somebody might know that number, but it's a little out of control. So that's what I would go with.
Okay, we'll go backwards. Nick?
I was thinking about rackets too, because it's a real pain. And building the bikes for all this and testing all types of frames, and it's always different, especially when you work in composite, but what else? Yeah, the lack of standardized and regulations towards a few specific things that work, and we have to be able to use everyone. It's a mess, so more regulation would be good.
Bob?
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that one. It's all a pain in the neck.
This guy likes to
For
solve
us,
problems.
I mean, like, for us, when I have to build a new bottom bracket, I have to build a new mold, so it's expensive. When I have to adopt for a new tire or wheel size, I have to build a new mold. So it's hugely expensive every time we make changes, and I kind of like the old days where things didn't change so much. But that being said, we're getting better bikes and better systems, and I think that it drives me nuts trying to keep up with it, but that's part of the game, I guess, is we're stuck with. I don't know.
I'm not a curmudgeon. I love change. What?
You're not curmudgeon like Bob.
We
Compliment you.
I'm a corporate curmudgeon. Yeah. No,
Try to get
I'm
engaged
not.
back.
Get a little
No, I
excited.
think for me, for the company, we're, well, what I said a while ago about, everything that's new is not innovative. Some stuff is just new and it's just there. And so if we're, and those of you who have tried know that we won't build anything just because somebody asks for it. And sometimes we'll build one and get to know whatever it is, and then decide whether or not it's something that we want to, if we think it's actually adding value, and maybe we want to consider offering it to other customers or not. So we're always on the lookout for innovative ideas that we think actually can deliver a better bike of the type that we want to build. But we tend to not let them become a nuisance to us. I mean, either we embrace them because we think it's a great idea, or we just say no, and which we also do fairly often.
So have you said no to something that's fairly commonplace lately?
An example would be drilling holes in anywhere people want in their titanium bikes, or their bikes, right? Just drilling holes because you can. I mean, Nicholas touched on something in a way sort of unwittingly. In that this industry, it is a nightmare. I mean, I've been in this a long time, and it still blows me away that there is so little regulation of this industry, because people are allowed to use stuff that they can get killed on that really hasn't been thoroughly tested. These are all great companies up here, but there's been a lot of product that's out in the field that no one should be buying. I'm our company's crash test dummy. Mike Lopez, who's our composites engineer out in California, will send a first fork over. It's kind of a running joke with us. He'll put a skull and crossbones on it to make sure that we know it's not supposed to be ridden, and I'll ride it, but that's not nearly enough testing. Anyway, I'm on a rant. I don't know why. Oh, the holes in bike frames that weren't that the material's not designed to have a hole there. So that's been one of my pet peeves lately. But we're
One more question, anybody? You good? Thank you for the questions. Oh, one more. First and last, right?
So there's been an increasing internationalization, obviously, of the business. At least, at the Trek level, which is a different price point from you, but, obviously, Asia has really entered the market. What kind of challenges has that created for you, and how have you overcome those? Is that a positive or is it a negative?
Oh, I think it's, for me, we're making eye contact, so I'll answer
Sure.
that first. Well, I think that we're people are people in terms of riding bikes. It's just like the difference between, there's from a engineering challenge standpoint, there's no big difference between designing a bike for a man or woman. It's just designing a bike for the person the right way. Different markets have different perceptions. I was talking to somebody earlier about when we first started delivering bicycles in Switzerland on a regular basis. There was a standard of excellence that was expected from Switzerland that was unlike anything we'd experienced from doing business in the US. And it made us a better business. And I think every time you go into a different market, there is that. There are different habits of doing business, and there's always a learning curve, and you kind of, I embrace those as opportunities to make the business better. We don't know how, but it's just an adventure that way. So we certainly welcome it. Shipping is a bit of a headache because we're delivering usually 1 or 2 bikes at a time, and shipping costs are high. So there are certainly challenges that way, but we're happy selling bikes anywhere.
Yeah. As in China, I just got back from China. I was just Thursday night, and I was over there 2 or 3 months ago as well. So I made the decision a while back to build a production bike in China, which is a hard decision for me because I initially had decided that I would build everything in the US. But I also wanted bikes in bike shops, and so I was invited to go over to China to meet with a builder. I had a builder that kept on every Indian bike. He would come to me and say, "I'd like to build bikes." He was an American who lived in Taiwan, who built bikes in Taiwan. And I like what I saw over there. The shops I've worked with in China have been very good, very clean, work is very well taken care of. And so I actually felt good about it. And I also get to work with those builders. I design my bikes, I design the layups, we problem solve together. And it scared the hell out of me going overseas to build bikes. But since I've embraced it, and with working directly with the builders, I'm getting what I want out of it. And so it's become a necessary evil, I think. But in saying that, I'm getting the bike that I want out of it, and my customers love those bikes. So I don't feel, it was a difficult decision, and it was a lot of thought process that went into it. But I think it was the right decision for us. It really opened us up into more of a worldwide market. And, it's a major part of our business at the moment, but we still have our we do all of our design work in-house. Our designs start in my Beverly office and, go to China. As we were designing on fiber type, what would go into the bike, the ride performance, the weight of the bike. I had that direct conversation with the builders over there, the engineers over there. So, I would like to build everything in the US. I would like to employ more US people, but also I gotta raise my family, I gotta pay my employees here, I gotta run a business. So it became a necessary evil, I think, for us.
Thank you.
Pretty much the same thing as you, I think. I know a few manufacturers and builders in Asia also that they have different problems, different challenges, and it's not